So today we are at the site of the former Red Hill train station, which was originally built for the Perkiomen Railroad, which later became the Perkiomen branch of the Reading Railroad. I could get into the whole history of the Perkiomen, how it became part of the Reading, etc., etc. But today we're going to talk about the Red Hill train station. The Red Hill train station was actually built in 1909, only 7 years after Red Hill became Red Hill. Until that time, Red Hill was actually called Hillicusville. So the Red Hill station was actually built in 1909 and survived up until just shortly after the last passenger train came through in 1955. I have a picture here. See if we can see it. Pretty much where we're standing right here is where the station once was. You look up just about where that pipe is in the ground is about where the station sat. So if I take this down, this is where the station once was. Like I said, the station lasted until sometime late 55, maybe early 56. We're not 100% sure, but if you notice, the actual station was taken off of the freight station part and actually survived. This freight station part actually survived later. That's the part that was still here till probably late 55, 56. Not sure exactly, but the original station part, which was on the end, that we're estimating was probably taken off probably mid-50s, maybe 53, 54 in that time frame. Unfortunately, when it comes to these stations, oftentimes the history is a little sketchy and you get mixed responses and mixed answers the farther you look. But there is a video from July 1955 of the last passenger train on the Perkiomen, and in the video clip you can see just the freight station part that survived. In the clip you can still see that part there. If you look here, right about where it says Red Hill, that's about where we're at right here. Probably assume some of this you see here is probably for the entrance of the driveway to the Red Hill, to the station. Actually, I need to mention that this is actually 6th Street in Red Hill. Being from the area, I've always took it for granted that people knew exactly where this was. But as I do talks for the Historical Society, oftentimes people will ask, where is the Red Hill station? And I always took it for granted everybody knew. But like I said, it's 6th Street in Red Hill. And as far as I know, there was never anything else built in this section of land here, as far as I know. So I would assume, because of the location of the road, that's where the railroad used to go across. Due to the location of the road, I would assume that this is probably remnants of the driveway that went to the station. These pictures here are definitely, these two top pictures of the Red Hill station are older. The lower one was, like I said, probably near the end of the station's history, which obviously would have had this driveway in it at that time, but it's kind of hard to tell in that black and white picture. Really not much left of where the station would have been. There's a little bump here in the ground. Actually, never noticed that before. That's a piece of concrete, which is not exactly the most exciting thing in the world to find a piece of concrete. But when you're looking for stuff like the old stations and old ruins, it's pretty cool. So I guess you could assume that was probably part of the foundation of the Red Hill station. So that would put us right about, so if I zoom in, yeah, that seems about right. You would take the space to the curb, and then you turn over this way. That would put us just about here. So then if you look ahead, the tracks would be right about where the trees cut out. Let's see if there's any other remnants here. I don't really see too much else, but that drainage ditch right here, that's the track would have been actually, the railroad would have been right next to it, because that pipe has been there a long time, and if you line it up, right next to there would have been the right-of-way. This is where the track would have come through. And if you notice, off in the distance, still standing, is the milk house. Although the railroad was known for its milk, and actually the first train of the day was the milk train, there was a siding there. Although there was a siding, and we did have the milk train once a day that came through, picked up milk, and took it into the city from local farmers. That milk house was technically not part of the railroad. It wasn't owned by the railroad. And you see in this picture here from the mid-50s, you can see if it zooms in here, you can see the milk house. The tall part next to it, the chimney part, was removed a long time ago. So if I take this down, that white building, that's the milk house. Like I said, it was part of it. I mean, they had a siding and they did service the milk from it, but it was not owned, technically a railroad building. It was not owned by the railroad. So the track in here survived post-Reading, and although it was out of service long before it was removed in 1980. From Green Lane up to Pennsburg and 8th Street in Pennsburg, the track was removed up to that point. The line, depending on where you read, it's always been a topic of discussion. If the line was removed or taken out of service in 1972, 73, stories may vary as to when the line was from Pennsburg and 8th Street down through Green Lane into Perkiomenville was taken out of service. Like I said, that was, you read one good source and it says 72, some says 73. We're leaning towards 1973. The track was taken out of service from 8th Street in Pennsburg down to basically outside of Green Lane into Perkiomenville. Actually, what am I saying? No, it was actually taken out of service from Pennsburg all the way down to just outside of Skipback, Schwanksville, in that area. Schwanksville, Springmount area. Man, getting all turned around here. That was taken out of service probably around 73. From Red Hill to just about Springmount area. Again, some of that stuff kind of varies. Because for a line and a railroad like the Perkiomen that was as popular as it was, sometimes the history of it tends to be a little hard to find. But the first section, a track to be removed from around the Schwanksville, Springmount area, was removed in 1975. And that was removed down to Crusher Road in Perkiomenville. That's where the track was removed to. And then, like I said, the section from basically Perkiomenville to 8th Street in Pennsburg survived until 1980, although already out of service, but it was removed in 1980. The other thing of interest, though, is the Red Hill Station was definitely not the only station that Red Hill had. There was also a station called Hillegas. Since this was called Hillegasville, there was a station called Hillegas. Very little's known about it. All we know is that as of the 1893 county map, it was listed on it in 1893. So since this was still Hillegas until it was changed over to Red Hill in 1902, we would assume that station probably survived into probably early 1900s, just before the Red Hill Station was built in 1909. It was actually located down the tracks about a half a mile or so. I'd say about half a mile down the tracks that way at Hendricks Road in Red Hill. That's where the Hilligus station was. We have the rough idea where it was, and we're working on trying to get permission to do some exploring on the site of it, of where it used to be. Again, there's some concrete and some other remnants up here. But, so yeah, so the Hilligus station, like I said, was down near Hendricks Road. As of 1893, we have charts and stuff to go back to 1875, and it's not listed yet. So we would say probably 1880 to maybe turn of the century. It's hard to tell, like I said. Some of this stuff is very, very hard to figure out when it comes to some of these lesser known stations along here. Also, but to make things even more confusing, there was another station called Welker's, which we think was just a platform, which was guesstimated to be where the Red Hill Station was later built. That was built around 1875, and again, we don't really have any too much more information about Welker's, but that was probably a whistle stop that was probably about the same location here as the Red Hill Station. Wish there was more to be seen, but it is interesting though to find this cement. And like I said, as far as I know, there was never anything else built. There's never anything else built in this area, in this section here. So whatever you see was probably from the station. And besides the siding that went off, that went down to the milk house, there was also a runaround or a passing siding that went behind the station, and that would have been up in this parking lot here. About in here is where the tracks would have been. And of course, that's probably from the sign. Of course, there's not much left of that too. But anyway, let's figure we do a little then and now. Like I said, we're site of the Red Hill Station, which would have been right about there. So again, if you size this up and you see the Red Hill State, see where the station was, and see the tracks to the right, that's right next to where the drainage ditch is. You can actually see the ditch, where the ditch would go down. Like right there where it goes down is right about in there where it dips down. So that is where it was. And that is the site of the former Red Hill Station. Formerly of the Perkiomen Railroad, later became the Perkiomen branch of the Redding. So I'm gonna do a few more of these here and there, the then and nows, or there's also stuff to go and experiment with and search for that we're not really sure of. But that's part of the fun, is finding where stuff once was. It seems like the more you dig into it and the more you learn, the more you realize there is to learn. But that's kind of how it goes. Like I said, that's where the track used to go across right there. So, thanks for checking in.